Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the shoes of an ecological detective to solve, well, the ultimate mystery of mortality in the wild. I am absolutely thrilled to take you through this because we're going to be looking at life, death, and survival through a truly forensic lens. We're going to rely on raw, hard evidence to decode the vital statistics of nature itself.
So think about this for a second. How do we actually know when a wild animal is going to die? It's a pretty fascinating question to kick things off. I mean, how do ecologists track the lifespan of something like a mountain sheep or a beaver when they obviously can't watch them every single second of every day? It's not exactly like these animals leave behind a paper trail, right? To figure out the natural lifespan of a species, ecologists have to literally become detectives, piecing together scattered clues to understand the mathematical rhythms of survival.
Section 1. The mystery of mortality. Let's define the basics.
Now, the foundational clue for any ecological investigation is tracking what we call a cohort. A cohort is simply a group of same-aged young that grow and survive at similar rates. Think of it kind of like your graduating high school class. By isolating a specific generation like this, we can follow their collective fate over time. It lets us filter out all the noise of older and younger animals so we can see exactly when and how this one specific group naturally drops off.
Section 2. The Ecologist's Toolkit. This is where we look at compiling that raw mortality data.
So, scientists essentially have two main ways to build a life table, which is just a record of survival. The first is a cohort life table. You can picture this as setting up a video camera and tracking a single group from the exact moment they're born until the very last one dies. It's incredibly accurate, but as you can imagine, it's also incredibly difficult to pull off. The second method is a static life table. Instead of a long, continuous video, this is more like taking a photograph. It's a snapshot of a population's age structure at one specific moment in time.
And that snapshot approach is absolutely crucial for long-lived animals. If you're studying tortoises, elephants, or trees, tracking a single cohort from birth to death is honestly completely impractical. The researchers themselves might not even live long enough to finish the study. This is exactly why the researcher Adolf Murray famously used the static snapshot approach to study Dall mountain sheep in the Arctic regions of Alaska. He obviously couldn't follow one single flock around for 20 years, so instead, he examined the age structure of the entire population he found at one specific time.
The crucial takeaway here is what Murray actually found hidden in that snapshot. By examining the different age classes of the sheep, he calculated that 734 out of 1,000 sheep survived to their 6th year. That translates to a survival rate of 0.734. Basically, this value tells us that over 3/4 of those born will survive their early, highly vulnerable years and successfully reach adulthood. It is just a fantastic piece of ecological detective work.
Section 3. 3 types of survival, or what we can call our visual suspect profiles.
Okay, so when ecologists take the data from a life table and plot it, they create what's known as a survivorship curve. Now notice that it's almost always plotted on a log scale. You might be wondering, why a log scale? Well, it's because ecologists really want to examine the rate of change over time, not just the absolute numbers of animals. Using a log scale ensures that whether we start with 100 individuals or a massive group of 1,000, the rate of survival can be easily and accurately compared right alongside other species.
And when we start plotting different species out like this, a really startling pattern emerges. The vast majority of species on Earth actually fall into one of 3 distinct mathematical patterns of survival. We can think of them as our 3 idealized suspect profiles: Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. Let's dig into each one.
So, moving to our first profile, the Type I curve. In a Type I curve, early juvenile survival is remarkably high, and mortality doesn't heavily strike until much, much later in life. You basically start high and stay incredibly flat for a long time, right before dropping off sharply at the very end. This is the exact profile of Murray's Dall mountain sheep we talked about, and not surprisingly, it's also the profile for humans. We generally survive our youth and middle age, with the overwhelming majority of mortality naturally occurring in our later, senior years.
But, nature doesn't always play by those rules. Take a look at the raw data for the North American beaver, and we see something entirely different. Across their early life, midlife, and late life, we just see a steady, unrelenting decline. Plotted on our log scale, the beaver's survivorship isn't some long flat line that plunges at the end. It's a nearly perfect diagonal line pointing straight down.
That steady diagonal line represents a Type 2 curve.
In this specific profile, the chance of dying is essentially constant and entirely uniform throughout the organism's entire life. So for a beaver, the probability of dying at age 2 is basically the exact same as the probability of dying at age 8. They face a relentless, uniform risk of mortality from things like predators, disease, and the environment every single day they are alive.
Finally, that brings us to the type 3 curve, which is literally the exact opposite of type 1. Here, massive numbers of individuals die when they are extremely young. We see this heavily in marine invertebrates like barnacles, as well as insects and weedy plants. They might release thousands or even millions of offspring, and the vast majority of them perish almost immediately. But the curve actually flattens out way down at the bottom. That means the lucky few who somehow survive that initial slaughter often end up living a really long time.
Section 4. The human impact, looking at external interference.
All right, so we've successfully mapped out the natural baselines for these species, but our ecological investigation really isn't complete until we look at the ultimate plot twist, which is external interference. I mean, what actually happens when you introduce human variables into the mix? Things like organized hunting, over-collecting specimens, or introducing grazing livestock can completely alter a natural environment. Let's look at the evidence to see how our actions can radically distort these natural survivorship curves and, in effect, completely rewrite a species' life table.
Data from Arizona grasses shows us exactly how this dynamic plays out. The ungrazed grass clearly represents the natural baseline survivorship. But look what happens to the grazed grass the moment livestock are introduced. The grazing completely disrupts the grass's survivorship, causing this incredibly steep, unnatural drop-off compared to the baseline. We've essentially taken their natural curve and bent it entirely out of shape.
And we see this exact same dramatic distortion happening in urban environments too. For instance, in Bristol, where there is zero active fox control, the foxes display a perfectly natural survivorship curve. But over in London, where foxes actively face human population control measures, their survival curve is drastically steepened. They are dying at much higher rates way earlier in their lives, and it's due entirely to external human intervention.
Which brings us to our final mystery for this explainer. As we've seen, human impacts are actively altering the vital ecological signs of plants and animals all over the globe. Sure, we sit quite comfortably on our own type 1 survivorship curve right now. But as we continue to rapidly change the environment, introduce new variables, and heavily stress the very ecosystems we rely on, well, you have to ask, how long until we unknowingly disrupt the survivorship curves of our own future? It's a case file that is definitely still being written. Thanks so much for joining me on this investigation.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Stay tuned.